As he walked through the forest, he noticed his shadow sometimes veered left or right, or suddenly grew longer when no sun was above. At a forked road, it pointed toward a narrow goat path. He followed it. At sunset, he reached a quiet compound with broken huts and fallen shrines. There was a small girl sitting in the dust, drawing circles with her finger. She looked up. Her eyes glowed yellow. And around her neck was a live snake, not strangling her, but whispering. "Are you the boy who cannot die?" she asked. "Because I cannot sleep." Obidike stared. His shadow reached out toward her. He tied the red thread around his wrist. He thought the curse was personal. But some curses are threads in a larger cloth. And the boy who could not die was about to meet others who could not live. They said the earth never forgets, especially when it is forced to keep secrets. In the belly of the land, the bones of the betrayed rattle against the soil, begging to be remembered. And now, Obidike was walking on the very grave that had cursed his bloodline. For 6 days and 6 nights, Obidike and the girl with the whispering snake, called Zinariah, traveled across ancient footpaths forgotten by men. She spoke little, but her snake did. It coiled loosely around her neck, flickering its tongue near Obidike's ear as if tasting his spirit. At night, they slept near termite mounds. On the 7th night, Obidike dreamed of a river of bones. In the dream, he stood on a hill shaped like a kneeling man, and beneath the hill was a grave sealed with blood and silence. "The man buried here is not dead," a voice whispered. "He waits to be remembered. And when he is, someone must pay." When Obidike woke, the soil beneath his mat was wet, not with water, but red dust, as if the earth itself had bled during the night. Zinariah pointed without speaking. They walked until they found it, a small hill, round and smooth, shaped eerily like a bowing man's back. No grass grew on it. Only thorny shrubs and scattered cowrie shells half buried in the soil. At the top stood a single ancient tree, bent backward, as though forced to watch something behind it. Obidike, quietly. This is where he was buried. But it was not his time to die. As they stepped onto the hill, the wind stopped. Even the birds went silent. Obidike dropped to his knees and touched the ground. It was warm. Then he heard it. A heartbeat. Faint, slow, but steady. From beneath the earth. That night, they built a small fire, but it would not burn. Instead, flames flickered sideways, away from the tree, toward a crack in the earth that had not been there before. Zinariah began chanting softly. Her snake hissed in rhythm. The man who was buried alive was not alone. The wind blew hard, and Obidike's third eye burned. He fell into a trance. He saw visions. A man bound with ropes, thrown into a pit by his own brothers. A priest taking bribes. A child watching from behind a shrine, too afraid to speak. A curse spat into the earth, like venom. The man's final words echoed. Let my blood find a path. Let my voice find a child. Let those who betrayed me never rest. Obidike woke screaming. Zinariah stood beside him holding a bowl of black sand and ground charcoal. She poured it in a circle around the cracked earth. Then she slit her thumb and added blood to the mix. The earth trembled. Slowly, bones began rising, not all at once, but in pieces. A jaw here. A hand there. the spine last. The bones did not lie flat. They knelt upright. One by one, 7 sets of skeletal knees emerged around them, forming a circle. Obidike stepped into the center. "Speak," he said. "I carry the curse. I am here to finish what was started." The bones whispered. "One still lives. The blood of betrayal still breathes. You must find him. Only his scream can break the chain." The boy who could not die was not cursed for himself. He was cursed to become a mirror. And now, he must make the living remember the sins of the dead. Obidike stood in the center of the circle of kneeling bones. The moon overhead pulsed red, though no eclipse had been forecast. Zinariya watched silently, her snake lying still against her collarbone. Then the bones began to glow faintly, not with fire, but with memory. From their hollow skulls, voices rose like smoke. "We were 7 brothers, born of the same mother, raised in the house of Odiu, warrior of the Elim kingdom." Obidike's eyes glazed over. He saw the memory unfold, not like a dream, but like standing inside a living past. He watched as 7 proud brothers stood before a shrine, arguing over land, power, and the prophecy their dying father had left behind. "The first to be betrayed shall carry the land's shame. But the last to breathe shall bear the curse's name." The eldest, Immortality, had been gifted a rare sight. He could see fate's thread in other people's lives. The others feared him, envied him. One moonless night, they drugged him with yam wine laced in ojogbo powder, bound him, and dug a pit behind the family compound. Only one of them, Okyut, the youngest, hesitated. But he had remained silent. "We buried him alive, on this hill." He was still chanting as the soil covered his face. "He cursed us with every breath, binding our bloodline to his vengeance." Obidike's body trembled. Zinariya stepped closer and whispered, "You are the great-grandson of Okyut. You carry the silence that sealed this curse. You are the last to breathe." As dawn crept across the sky, a low hum began to rise from the earth. The crooked tree at the center of the hill began to bleed. From cracks in its bark, a dark red sap oozed, slowly at first, then gushing, staining the roots. Obidike stumbled toward it, his third eye glowing uncontrollably. Trees whisper, telepathic, rhythmic. Blood buried, blood forgotten. Bones betrayed, bones broken. Speak my name, then wake my soul. He pressed his hand to the bark. He pressed his hand to the bark. Flashes shot through him. A burial ceremony without drums. A bowl of cola ignored by the gods. A man screaming beneath soil. A necklace, carved from bone, shaped like an eye. Suddenly, Obidike gasped. He was wearing the necklace in the vision. When he opened his eyes, it was no longer a vision. The necklace was now hanging around his neck. Zinariya, terrified. The grave has chosen you as its voice. You now carry the eye of Immortality. As the first rays of sun hit the hill, the 7 skeletons collapsed into dust, as if their temporary lease on the living world had expired. But the ground shook beneath them. Something was still moving beneath the earth, not bones, but something else. Something unseen. The hill began to split. From its center, a faint blue light emerged, and Obidike's feet began to sink into the soil. Zinariya grabbed his hand, but the snake wrapped itself around Obidike's arm and hissed into his third eye. He saw a vision of himself, standing before a burning compound, holding a staff, his left hand dripping blood, his right holding a head. Obidike screamed. The earth released him, tossing him backward. The necklace burned against his chest. Zinaria, you are not ready yet. But the curse is. The last son of Betrayal still breathes. Before they left the hill, Obidike picked up a piece of one of the skulls. In its jaw was a single, rotted tooth made of gold. Etched into the gold was a name. Nkemekanam. Zinaria's snake recoiled violently at the sight of the name. She covered her mouth as if gagging. Zinaria. That name, that man, he was the high priest who approved the false burial rites for Eneboli. He is the last living conspirator. Obidike narrowed his eyes. Obidike. Where is he now? Zinaria turned slowly, eyes glowing white. The journey to Omogbin took 2 days through the whispering forest of Umuohia, where trees bent toward travelers and vines called with intention. Obidike and Zinaria walked in silence. Around them, birds did not sing. The wind spoke in riddles. Shadows moved without source. Zinaria's snake grew restless, flaring its hood as they passed sacred trees carved with ancient sigils. Zinaria, softly. This land remembers. You are walking where gods have bled. On the second night, they reached the river Ko, black as ink and said to flow only when a great lie was told on its banks. Obidike knelt, cupped the water, and drank. It was warm, metallic, bitter. As he rose, the necklace around his neck paused. He turned to Zinaria. Obidike. What if the curse isn't about vengeance? What if it's about justice? Zinaria's eyes gleamed like storm clouds. Zinaria. Justice is for the living. But the dead, they demand more. Omogbin was not a village. It was a sacred grove-turned compound, a labyrinth of shrines guarded by masked children with white ash on their faces. At its center stood a hut made of woven cowhide and ivory thorns. Inside, Nkemekanam knelt before a bowl of bones, chanting over them. He was blind. But his third eye glowed, not with divinity, but with stolen light. He was not surprised when Obidike and Zinaria stepped into his shrine. Nkemekanam, without turning. So the earth has finally grown teeth. Obidike's necklace began to burn. Zinaria's snake hissed violently. Nkemekanam. I buried your ancestor with my own hands. I sang the song that sealed the pit. And still, here you are. Obidike's fist clenched. Obidike. You remember him. Nkemekanam. I remember his screams. Obidike lunged, but Zinaria held him back. Nkemekanam laughed, blood dripping from his mouth. Nkemekanam. You think killing me will lift the curse? No, child. The curse is not mine anymore. It belongs to you. Zinaria stepped forward, chanting in a forgotten tongue. Her snake slithered onto the shrine, coiling around the bowl of bones. The shrine cracked. A mirror rose from the ground, round and framed with human teeth. It was the judgment mirror, forged by Odo the Just, used once every century. Nkemekanam screamed as it reflected not his face, but his crimes. Pouring bribes into the mouths of shrine elders. anointing wicked rulers with stolen blood, using the cries of dying spirits to increase his own lifespan. Mira's voice, deep, ancient. Do you deny what you see? Nkemaka. I do. Mira. Then you shall see it forever. His third eye exploded in a burst of black flame. He fell, weeping, blinded now in all worlds, cursed to relive his betrayals eternally. Obidike raised the necklace. The eye of Eneboli detached and flew into the mirror, merging with it. The mirror cracked down the center and disintegrated. As the mirror vanished, the earth began to quake. A voice, deeper than any human voice, echoed across the grove. Obidike's body convulsed. His eyes rolled back. He saw Eneboli again, still buried beneath the hill, chanting with his last breath. Let my rage not rot. Let it rise in the blood of the silent child. Let him carry my fire to the house of cowardice. Suddenly, Obidike saw his father, a weak man who had died when he was 5, silent and broken, never speaking of the family past. He was the son of Okute. He knew, and said nothing. Obidike screamed, the fire of 10 generations pouring from his mouth. His skin glowed. His third eye erupted into a blinding beam. The grove's trees bent backward. The snake fainted. Sinaria fell to her knees. Then, silence. Obidike floated. The grave does not want blood. It wants memory. It wants truth. And truth must be spoken by the cursed. The night was heavier than usual. The moon, once pale and ever watching, was now a bloodshot red orb, barely hanging over the valley of Oloka, the forbidden mouth of the earth where the older spirits slept. Obidike stood barefoot at the edge of the cliff, clothed in nothing but a white wrapper now soaked with dust and sweat. His third eye glowed dimly, flickering as if unsure of what world it belonged to. Zinaria stood behind him, silent. This is where it must end, Obidike whispered. No, Zinaria replied. This is where it must begin. Below them, the valley roared. Not with thunder, but with voices. Thousands of voices. Murmuring. Crying. Chanting. Screaming. The dead were awake. That night, Obidike crossed into the valley alone. With each step, the world behind him disappeared, light, wind, trees, even the sound of his own heartbeat. Only memory followed him. Suddenly, 7 spirits rose from the dust. They formed a circle around him. All were the regalia of elders, but their eyes were missing. In their sockets, flames flickered. The middle spirit spoke. Do you know why you cannot die, child? Obidike, because I carry a curse. No. Because you carry a voice. One that was silenced too long. The spirits began to circle him. As they moved, his body twisted. Memories not his own poured into his mind. Okute weeping before a shrine, begging forgiveness from gods who would not answer. Eneboli being buried alive by villagers chanting his shame. Obidike's father watching it all and turning away. You are the last of the silent. The curse is only half broken. A fire erupted from the center of the valley, and a stone rose from beneath the ground, inscribed with the names of the guilty. Every man who had betrayed Eneboli's bloodline was listed. Obidike's name was the last. You must burn your name off the stone, one spirit said. Only then shall you live, truly. Obadiah hesitated. Banning the name meant rejecting not just the curse, but everything that had bound his ancestors, every lie, every silence, every shadow. Zenariah's voice echoed from above the cliff. The curse was never death. It was unfulfilled truth. Speak it now. Obadiah stepped forward, placed his hand on the stone, and whispered. Let the dead hear what they were denied. The stone burst into flame. His name turned to ash. His third eye closed, not from blindness, but completion. And then, silence. A silence so pure it was deafening. Obadiah collapsed as the fire devoured the stone. His body twitched violently, foam collecting at the edge of his lips. But the spirits did not help. This was the final threshold, where the living and the dead part ways. Suddenly, the winds shifted. Zenariah descended into the valley, her snake coiled tightly around her neck, eyes glowing like twin embers. Zenariah, chanting. Kundu. Kundu. Let him not die a vessel. Let him rise a voice. She placed her hand on Obadiah's chest. His heart had stopped. Zenariah bit her tongue, drawing blood, and smeared it on his forehead. By the covenant of the serpent and the storm. Rise now, not as cursed, but as chosen. A crack split the sky. Obadiah gasped violently. His third eye reopened, not with flame, but with light, calm, golden, pulsing like a heartbeat. Obadiah, weakly. I heard them all. They were never angry. They were forgotten. The next morning, Obadiah and Zenariah journeyed to Mount Ogwema, where no man had set foot in over 300 years. It was believed the mountain would kill any mortal who ascended without permission from the gods. But Obadiah no longer walked as mortal. He climbed barefoot, each step leaving behind glowing footprints that smoldered for minutes before fading. Zenariah stayed below, watching silently. When Obadiah reached the summit, he stood before the tree of speaking winds, a gnarled, ancient thing believed to be the oldest living witness of truth. He knelt and began to speak. Not to gods, not to spirits, but to memory. I am the last of my blood. Not by choice, but by betrayal. We were silenced, first by fear, then by forgetfulness. But now, I speak. For them. For me. For those still chained. The tree's leaves rustled. The mountain bowed, the clouds descended in reverence, wrapping the summit in a cocoon of silence. From the heavens, a single feather fell, white, shimmering, and heavy with spiritual weight. Obadiah caught it. Voice in the wind. You have fulfilled what the dead could not. You are no longer cursed, but consecrated. The valley below transformed. The dry river Obadiah had once crossed on cracked feet now surged with crystal blue water. Villagers began to gather, sensing that something old had been healed. Obadiah descended slowly, like a prophet returning from exile. He approached the water, cupped it, and for the first time, it tasted sweet. Zenariah, smiling faintly. The river Po has forgiven. The land has accepted you. The people knelt, even the elders who once mocked his name. Children whispered. He cannot die, they say. No, he has already died and returned. Obadiah raised his hand. Obadiah. I am not your savior. I am your mirror. As long as you bury the truth, curses will be born. As long as silence reigns, spirits will not sleep. That night, Zinaria sat by the fire alone. The snake uncoiled from her neck and slithered toward the shadows. Zinaria, softly. My task is done. Obidike joined her, placing the feather on the ground between them. Obidike. You knew all along, didn't you? That I was born for this. Zinaria did not answer. Her eyes shimmered, but not from tears, from memory. I, too, was cursed. Born with the tongue of a serpent, feared by all. I thought I would die unseen. But helping you, broke my own chains. A bright light engulfed her. When it faded, the serpent was gone. Zinaria's face, once half-shadowed by darkness, was now clear, radiant, human. No more spirit guides. No more whispers. Just breath. They sat in silence, finally free. To complete the spiritual healing of the land, Obidike led the ritual of forgotten names, gathering all descendants of those who had betrayed Eneboli and the cursed lineage. They each wrote down the names of their ancestors on dried palm leaves. Then, one by one, they stepped into the circle of fire, confessed aloud their ancestral sins, and let the names burn. Wails erupted. Men wept. Women screamed. But through it all, Obidike stood firm, the vessel that allowed pain to find its voice. At the end of the ritual, silence fell again. Not heavy. Not ominous. Sacred. The ground, once cracked and cursed, bloomed. Years passed. Obidike no longer traveled. He became a guardian of oral truth, teaching young ones the history their fathers had buried. One evening, a boy asked him, "Is it true you could not die?" Obidike smiled. "No. I simply had not lived yet." He passed peacefully under the tree of speaking winds. No fanfare. No lightning. Just stillness. They say the tree bloomed that night, with golden flowers never seen before. They say the river sang his name, not in mourning, but in celebration. And they say, no child born in that village ever carried a curse again. And so, the boy who could not die, finally lived, not as a legend, but as a lesson. In a world where curses are born of silence and betrayal, may we all find the courage to speak for the forgotten. This was not just a tale. It was a mirror. The spirits are always listening, but are you? If this story stirred something in you, let the spirits know by clicking the like button. And if you're ready to explore more forgotten legends, unspeakable curses, and spiritual awakenings from the heart of Africa, subscribe now. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you could hear the voices of the dead?